Everybody, welcome to the second statewide tele-town hall for a discussion and update with regards to the state contracts and for some of you, the state health insurance. I want to thank all of you for your service to your communities and schools, and I also want to thank you all for your membership to Teamsters Local 320 as well. For those of you who yourselves or your families may have been touched by the COVID-19 illness, I want to make sure that we send out a heartfelt message to you and your families as well. And for the purposes of tonight's meeting, I hope this call finds you all safe and healthy. Today, the International Brotherhood of Teamsters Public Services Division hosted its second membership-wide webinar. In today's webinar, we are fortunate to have three special guests: our General President, President Jim Hoffa, Representative Susan Wild from Pennsylvania, and Senator Elizabeth Warren from Massachusetts. Representative Wild and Senator Warren today discussed the fourth round of stimulus that they're working on at the federal level, which, of course, what we're working on is that there be a worker bill of rights included with that stimulus package that would protect public sector workers, provide an expansion of OSHA, which would include PPEs, personal protection equipment, as well as provide further collective bargaining rights in a fashion that would make it easier for public sector workers to organize. In addition to that, what Senator Warren and Representative Wild are fighting for is hazard pay for public sector workers, as well as some private sector workers who are required as essential workers to work during these difficult times. In addition to the guest speakers, there was also a PowerPoint presentation provided during the webinar, which provided summaries and recaps of the Families First Act, as well as the CARES Act. The information, the summaries that were provided by your international union on today's webinar, we have pushed those out to the membership. You'll be able to find those on your local union app and the local union's website. And I think you'll find some very helpful information there. For those of you who were able to or did jump on today's Public Services Division webinar, we hope you enjoyed it. And of course, while we're continuing to go through these difficult times, I'm sure there'll be more Public Services Division webinars for all of us. With that, I want to introduce a few people this evening that are on the call with us. We'll have the president of your local union, Sammy Gabriel, the communications director and political coordinator from your local union, Gus Frumke, and of course, working on your behalf from Joint Council 32, Drive, your political director for the Drive program, Ed Reynoso. Those will be your three presenters on tonight's call. There'll be the three of them will each provide an update in the presentation regarding the state contracts, and then we'll have a question and answer session as well. And I'm going to go ahead right now and turn it over to Sammy Gabriel.
Thanks, Brian. Good evening, everybody. I want to first start out with just announcing on a side note some news with Local 320. This week we won a great campaign, an organizing campaign that happened up at the ARC, the Arrowhead Regional Center, Correctional Center. It's a large facility. We've been working on it for a few months. and they were previously represented by an association, and now are represented by 1.4 million members that are Teamsters, with 320 at the helm of their representation. Huge thanks out to Business Agent and Recording Secretary Eric Scoop, and two members of St. Louis County that were instrumental in this campaign, Connie Westland and Corey Garden. So congratulations to them. Welcome aboard ARC, and that just shows you, you know, more of the power of Local 320. I want to report to you tonight on the coalition of unions that that I already talked about last week. These are all the state unions that represent state employees across the state. The two big ones are MAPE and ASME, and then it's every other union that represents employees, including state troopers, all the faculty at colleges and universities under IFO, MSUAASF, law enforcement groups, and many others that are all in a coalition in this group that we've been having discussions about passing the state contracts. We've been meeting twice weekly. We have a pre-meeting to talk about the agenda, and then folks from the states, from the governor's office, from the MMB, and other folks join us after our pre-meeting to have a conversation about mainly the state contracts getting ratified. Yesterday we had an extensive discussion with Commissioner Myron Franz on the phone, discussing the state's $2.4 billion projected deficit. Commissioner Franz talked about the fact that the $2.4 billion does not take into effect the state's rainy day fund or the money that we'll be getting from the federal government. We will, you know, we know that the $2.4 billion is a lot of money, but frankly, most of us expected that it would be higher than that. And unfortunately, it may grow higher. If there's more COVID costs, it will go higher. As to date, the state has spent $500 million on direct COVID costs, and that includes PPE, setting up care sites, staffing situations, and COVID-related things. So $500 million have been spent so far in the state of Minnesota. With the $2.4 billion, and knowing that there's a rainy day fund and some projected federal funds that are coming in, passing the state contracts is still a priority for the governor's office, for the MMB, for all of us, of course, all of the state unions, because we have negotiated these contracts in good faith, and the DFL in the state Senate and the House. That is where, you know, that is where we're expecting to have some heels dug in. Next Monday, there will be a vote on the House floor to pass the contracts. They will pass that. We have a DFL majority with your help and your calls and emails that will pass on Monday. When it goes to the Senate, if it gets to the Senate floor, that's where where your calls and emails are hoping to get them to pass this. We do believe, even though with that $2.4 billion deficit, that there is money to fund your contracts. Commissioner Myron Franz believes that. The governor believes that. So we have the big hitters on our side. We need a few more senators to get on our side in the GOP. You all have been doing a great job, and Gus will give you some hard numbers on how many responses we've had from our memberships, for our membership out there. But we need you to continue to reach out to your legislators. Even in the House, we need to, you know, if you have not called or emailed, call and email and just tell them, hey, we support you, we're here for you, we have your back. We need you to have our back on these very important votes. If you've already reached out, make sure that you're reaching out to your coworkers. Send a message, send a text to your coworkers, to your family, to your neighbors, to your friends, and tell them that this is the right thing to do. We've negotiated in good faith, and it's the right thing to do to pass these state contracts. As we talked about last week, if they are not passed, or if the Senate does not take a vote on them, we go back to ground zero. We believe that there are some legislators that just believe we could go in and do a line item veto and go in and cross out just the wage increase for the second year. Unfortunately, that's not how these work. If they do not vote on it or they vote to not ratify, if they reject them, we go back to the negotiating table and everything is open. As we've previously talked about, wages would be turned back, insurance benefits would be turned back to what they were a year ago on as of June 30th, 2019. So it's vitally important. We have 11 more days of the session. There's been no talk of a special session, and we don't believe that's going to happen. So we have less than 11 days to enact these, this pressure on the House and Senate to make sure this gets done. With that, I'll turn it over to Joint Council Drive's Political Director, Ed Reynoso.
Ed, you're on. Hello? Ed? Hello, Ed? Well, while we're waiting for Ed, I can...
Yeah, go ahead, Gus.
All right, everybody. While we're waiting for Ed to get patched through, I'm just going to go ahead. I've been tracking the numbers of contacts for our folks that use our system through the push notifications and emails that we send out. And I have some really good news. After the last communication we sent out earlier this week, we have reached our goal of 20% participation. That means 20% of the folks that we contacted this week have followed up and sent an email or made a phone call to their legislator in support of ratifying the state contract. And even better, we had a 137% increase in participation since last week. So, sorry, I got a little tongue-tied there. So we had a 130% increase in participation from last week. So that shows that we're able to mobilize our members when we need to. And again, I want to stress the importance that this isn't just state employees that we mobilize. We mobilize everybody that receives an email and everybody that receives a push notification from the Teamsters. So we were able to do that, and I also want to, someone mentioned that a lot of people at particularly the Minnesota State ASF group don't use our system. So obviously that does not encompass those folks. To my statistics, but I also just want to say that we don't know how many folks do use it or don't use it, but the folks who did use it and did receive our message this week followed up with an email and a phone call to their legislator. I think Ed Reynoso is ready to join this conversation. He said he's having technical difficulties right now. So I guess I'm just going to talk a little bit about what's going on at the legislature. Sammy said basically what we can anticipate going forward is a vote in the House to ratify the contracts on Monday. We know that what the contracts had to go through 3 committees in the House, Labor, Government Operations, and Ways and Means. In each committee, we saw partisan votes. The DFL members of each committee voted to pass the contracts, while the Republican members of each committee voted against the contract ratification. So we saw some very partisan attempts at ratifying our contracts in the House, and again, the Senate has not held one hearing. The bill is the bill to ratify the contracts in the Senate is actually Jeremy Miller's bill, who's the Senate president, and also a state senator from the Winona southeast area. And I'm just going to see if Ed's available yet to talk. Oh, and let's see if he's available.
Yeah, you can try it.
Hey, Ed, are you there?
I am here. Can you hear me?
Hey, we can hear you.
I don't know what's going on. I apologize about this, but I'm sorry that somehow or another my iPad doesn't seem to be working correctly.
That's right. We got you.
Yeah, we got you now. Can you give us a quick synopsis?
Well, thank you very much. This is a great opportunity for us to talk about what's going on at the Capitol with regards to these contracts. I can tell you the conversations are taking place. Unfortunately, there are some at the Capitol that are starting to posture a little more and are becoming quite vocal on these contracts, and it's not coming from the DFL side, and I'll be frank with you, it's coming from the GOP side, both in the House and in the Senate. And so if you caught some of the committee hearings, it was only the Republicans that unanimously, I believe, voted against it in each committee. So
yes,
it is a concern, and the House hearing, as Sammy had stated earlier, which is on Monday, may set the tone for what the Senate is going to do. So I'd like to say to you tonight, we need your help. We can't do it by ourselves. Gus went over the numbers, and I can tell you that without your help, it's going to be much more difficult. So we're asking and pleading with you to call your legislators. If you haven't done it, we're asking you to. This is about your job, and it's important for you and your family to keep this job and to have good wages and benefits. We've gone through the process and negotiated these wages for you. Now we just need to follow through and get it to the finish line. But we need your help. If you've already done it, do it again. It's not going to hurt you to call twice. And the other thing, if you've already done it, ask your coworkers to do it. Put pressure on your coworkers, because it's critically important that these calls get in and these emails are sent. A couple things about these calls: be respectful. Yeah, you know what? People can get a little frustrated, but be respectful. And the other thing, be respectful, but be firm. It's critically important that you do both. Tell them your story. Tell them about your family. Tell them about the impact this has to the stability of providing for your family, and being in limbo just isn't a good direction or place to be. And you know, just so you know, as this passes the House on Monday, which I'm positive it's going to pass, we're unclear with what the path is in the Senate. As I believe Sammy stated, session ends on May 18th, unless there's a special session. I don't think they're looking to do a special session. I think they're going to try to get things done. And, you know, we just hope at the end of the day that GOP leadership in the Senate doesn't start playing games with this bill and these contracts and looking to trade something that wouldn't be right. I mean, the reality is we've already negotiated these contracts, and we need to stick to the things that we're saying of we've negotiated them. We're not willing to renegotiate. We're not going to reopen these contracts. I can tell you right now, and I said this to Senator Jeremy Miller today, if all of a sudden the state had a $10 billion surplus, there ain't no way in hell they're going to open up our contracts and renegotiate them then. So why would they do it now? So I think it's, again, it's just so critically important that you mobilize, get your coworkers, get your family members, anybody you can think of that could put in a call to their legislators. Please do it. We need you now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ed. I want to thank Sammy and Gus for their presentations. You know, I want to just circle back and focus on something that Ed mentioned, and that is that we need your help. When Teamsters stand together, Teamsters win. We're going to get this done by all of us doing our share. You know, we can go to the legislature, Sammy and Gus or Ed or myself. They hear from us all the time. Legislators need to hear from their constituents. So we look forward to you making those calls. We're impressed with the turnout from the last action alert that went out. Let your peers know to pay attention for those action alerts and to make those calls themselves. Gus, do you want to go over the...
Yeah. So everyone, I just wanted to give an opportunity to show you where you can reach our action alert system and utilize the email your legislator and call your legislator feature. I know that many of you have already done so. I know that many of you on this call have maybe done it more than once. But for those of you who don't know who your legislators are and have not contacted your legislators yet, I just want to show you this is our Teamster website, www.teamsterslocal320.org. If you go to the Get Involved section, you'll see Action Alert, Help Protect State Employees, and you'll see our message and our bulletin. And then at the bottom, you will see Click to Call Your State Legislator Now. I'm going to click that. And what you have to do is fill out the information, and then you put in your number and you click it, and what it'll do is it'll actually call the number you put in, and it'll connect you directly with your state legislator based on your address information up here. And then secondly, same thing with your email. You just put in your address, your contact information, and then you're able to connect with your state legislators, and you can send an email directly to them. One thing I'd be interested in, we're all kind of a little bit interested in, is the what kind of response you're seeing, especially from Republican legislators. If anybody has, when I open it up for Q&A, if anybody has any ideas about or anything to provide us, any information, additional information about Republican legislators, we would be very interested in that information and how we can continue to message to the members to get effective messages back to the state legislators and push them in the right direction. So I'm gonna, unless anybody else has anything to say, we're gonna open it up to Q&A.
We will be holding the next call Thursday, May 14th at 6 p.m. to provide another update.
Okay, Tim works at Southwest.
So, Tim, thanks for your chat. Tim Elkhorn, campus president at Southwest University, said he mailed Gary Doms. And he's the legislator for that area, for that college sits in. He got back to me, said he doesn't sit on the committee that hears the bill anymore, but understands them and will keep an eye on them to move it to the floor. So it really, you know, for all of you, we understand what Gary's saying, that he doesn't sit on the committee, but it doesn't matter if they do or not. You know, when it goes to a floor vote, we need to have connection before that with everybody. So nice of him to point that out, but you know, that's the reality of it. Christy from St. Cloud, I emailed
Tammy
Tice. Said, I'll look for these bills and follow the progress. I'm currently co-author to House File 3732, the House version of the Senate bill. And unfortunately has not heard from Jerry Ralph. Okay, thanks, Christy.
Okay, I'm going to open it up to Q&A now for all of us. You know, if you have a question directly for Ed, I'm going to make sure that Ed's able to also help us in the question and answer. Otherwise, push *6 on your phone, and if you are online, please put yourself in queue when I open up the Q&A. Thank you very much. Hello, Julie, you're with us.
Hey, everybody. I did attend the meeting this afternoon at the Teamsters, and one of the things that was brought up was about other Teamsters having to do additional duties, like cleaning duties, that aren't necessarily part of their job or their contract. And my concern is just about either management or administration at various areas where people work, adding these additional duties under the guise of we're all in this together, we all need to do whatever is necessary to support our constituents, you know, whoever we support as public employees. But I am concerned that it will fundamentally change some positions. So how can we report, protect ourselves, you know, be really good employees and do what we need to do, but also protect ourselves so that our jobs aren't functionally changing?
Yeah, so we are paying special attention to that. In fact, we're experiencing that in some counties, some school districts as well, and I'm sure it's happening in other jurisdictions. For example, where teaching assistants in schools may be expected to carry on some other related duties, which could be lesson planning. We're familiar with the county where they're giving people the opportunity to be, for example, reassigned to other areas where maybe once they worked in a kitchen or a laundry room, and now they're working in new housing shelters for homeless, doing intakes. And we're concerned. We don't want these changes to take place forever, but at the same time, it's keeping our people employed. It's keeping our people with their paychecks, their benefits, health insurance. Everything is whole. So we are challenging it in some school districts where we do believe that our folks are performing work that they're not supposed to, and so we are continuing to hold people accountable. They got off.
Ed Reynoso, did you have a question? Did you have something else that you wanted to bring up? If you did, go back in the queue because it booted you, unfortunately. There you go.
There we go. Hey, Ed, you're on.
I don't have a question.
Oh.
Your system's acting funky tonight.
Totally funky. I apologize.
Hey, no problem.
Let me bring up one more thing that people might hear some rumbling. So this week, was it Linda Runbeck?
Yeah, Linda Runbeck.
Linda Runbeck introduced a real BS, I don't know what else to call it, piece of crap, piece of legislation. House File 4628. You know, probably trying to make a name for herself, trying to make it look like to her constituents she's trying to you know, be fiscally responsible. But she introduced some language that said that all state public employees they had to take 1 week of furlough every month. obviously this is not going to have any traction. You know, for her, it's probably some PR for an upcoming campaign, so she can say, hey, I'm fiscally responsible. It's really fiscally irresponsible. It's total BS, and it won't go anywhere. There's no Senate companion file, but it's something that you might hear out there because, you know, there's a lot of talk on how can we save money? How can we get out of the $2.4 billion budget? Putting people on furlough 1 week out of every month is not the way to do that. There's lots of other ways to do it, but if you hear something about that, it won't have any traction.
So I want to make, you know, this is food for thought, and you know, we think it's disgusting that the Republican-controlled Senate or the Republicans are playing a political volley with public employee livelihoods. The truth of the matter is, the people that are keeping this economy afloat right now, it's the government. It's public employees. You know, we see all around the country in various private sector industries massive amounts of furloughs and layoffs. And the work's not getting done, but in the public sector it is because of all of your hard work and your willingness to come to work. And back to the point about people performing other duties, I did forget to mention one thing. I have been a party to the negotiations that involve creating a job bank. We've had these discussions in Hennepin County. We've had them in some departments of the state of Minnesota. Those are critically important things. The other thing that I think we've all seen is how valuable it is to belong to a union and to have a union working on your behalf. While we've been managing and finding our way through this crisis, we have negotiated dozens and dozens of memorandums of understanding that feature things like hazard pay. We've negotiated COVID leave and COVID pay, where maybe our folks can't go to work for whatever the reason is. They're provided with, in some cases, unlimited amounts of time due to the COVID-19 disease. And these are conversations that we should all be having with our peers in and outside of the workplace, especially when we're talking to non-members. But when we are talking to people who are members, is to remind them about how fortunate we really are to have a union, to be part of an organization that is 1.4 million people strong.
Hello, Ben.
Yep. Hey, so this is Ben over in the Winona area. I have several coworkers that are in the AFSCME bargaining unit, and they were speaking with our representative, Gene Pulowski, and it was brought up by Gene that there's several GOP senators looking at having state workers obviously not ratifying the contracts and having them basically have to return the pay we've already received. Is this something you've heard, or is this even possible?
No, that is part of it, that you will not have to return the money that you've received. They will not collect the money back. But your wage would revert back to what it was previously, previous to July 1st of 2019. But no, nobody will be giving any money back. That is a for certain statement that the state will not collect the increases that you've received over the last year.
Thank you.
Hey, Ed.
Yes, Brian, I definitely want to make sure that we also talk about a historic piece of legislation we were able to pass in the state of Minnesota. And this local 320 played a huge role in its passage. We are one of two states, when this was passed, that provided the presumption of an on-the-job injury for our first responders and frontline workers. And what that means is that if you are one of those workers and you contract COVID-19, it is automatically, the presumption would be that it was an on-the-job injury. Us in California are the only ones that have it, and California's is watered down in comparison to ours. And so the language that we put forward and was subsequently passed and signed into law by the governor it's a model that other states are trying to get passed. So, you know, we're working our tails off with all these difficult situations and trying to get things done and get bills passed, get laws into place that are definitely going to protect our members. So again, you know, I think to not mention that Local 320 played a huge role in that, and so I thank the leadership at 320.
Thanks, Ed.
Does anybody else have any other questions, comments, concerns, clarifications? Please push *6 on your phone or put yourself in queue, please. Give it a few more seconds. Julie says, thanks to everyone who's working hard and all those who are contacting their legislators. I absolutely agree with Julie. I just want to add another thing, especially Senate Republicans. You know, Sammy said it best. Doms knows exactly what the situation is. He knows exactly how high these stakes are. All he has to do is pick up the Star Tribune and look inside and see the story about the state employee contracts. This is, you know, please don't accept that as an answer. Please continue to. DOMS is one of the critical ones we can move. Same with folks. If there's any folks from Bemidji, Representative Eichhorn or State Senator Eichhorn would be another one that we can go after. And please, because Bemidji's in his district, please go, Bemidji State, please go after these guys and do not accept, I'm not on this committee or I don't know what's going on, but I'm keeping my eye out as an answer. And then somebody said, Jay Hubner said, along with contacting local state senators and reps through Union 320 app, also text Public Aid to 86466 to receive info contacting U.S. senators and representatives. I'm not sure.
That was part of the town hall of IBT.
Oh, that was part of the IBT town hall today, yes. So, you know, one of the critical things that was on the IBT town hall today is aid to states and local governments. That is going to be critical in the next biennium. So that we're looking at less disaster for state employees and local county, city, municipal, school district employees. We need federal government support. That's the most important thing that we can get out of the stimulus for in Washington, D.C., money for states and local governments. Thank you very much for making that point, and absolutely, please contact your representatives and tell them how important it is to put money in for states and local governments and essential workers. All right, I don't see anybody else.
I want to thank everybody. Have a great evening, and we will talk about this again on Thursday, May 14th at 6 p.m. We'll send out a reminder notification.
Thank you.
Thanks, Ed.